What's up, Top 10 fam? Hope you're having an awesome day. I'm your host Ayman Hassan and welcome back to another video. Now, I completely trust doctors kind of blindly, but I feel like I'm biased because both my parents are doctors, so I feel like I've just been around them literally my whole life. Came in majorly clutch when I needed meds, doctor's notes and so forth, getting out of stuff, how it is. Parents, thank you for that. But with that position of power, people can abuse it if they want to, and it gets really screwed up. Before I get into it, guys, our third contest is still happening. The prize is a Nintendo Switch, and all you have to do is follow Landon Productions on Instagram and like his post about the contest. Nintendo Switch, you guys, who doesn't want one? But without further ado, these are the top 10 scary things doctors have done. Starting us off with number 10 is Shiro Ishii. Now, during World War II, this man was a Japanese microbiologist and lieutenant general in the biological warfare unit of the Japanese army. He was the director of Unit 731, which is where he developed and used biological weapons, which he tested on prisoners of war and other civilians, which is illegal. Just putting that out there. This man alone was responsible for some of the most notorious war crimes of Imperial Japan. He killed over 10,000 people by exposing them to diseases like anthrax and the plague. He would do this by injecting them with the diseases but disguising them as vaccinations, and then would just record the effects and not tell the prisoners what was going on, as they were just dying from the plague. He would stimulate heart attacks and strokes among patients, as well as forced abortions. He would order prisoners' limbs to be amputated so he could study their blood loss. He would order the limbs to then be attached to other parts of the body just to see what would happen. One person had their stomach surgically removed and their esophagus attached to their intestines instead, just to see what would happen. They obviously died. He would inject horse urine into their kidneys, put them in low pressure chambers till their eyes popped out, and none of that was done for any military or medical purpose whatsoever. He was just a sadist. Coming in at number 9 is Marcel Petiot. Now, born in 1897, this French doctor slash serial killer started off fighting in World War I, but after being injured, he was sent home. He went to medical school and worked as an intern at a mental hospital afterwards, which was controversial since he himself was diagnosed with multiple mental illnesses, and of course, he was addicted to narcotics. When his internship was over, he managed to attract patients to his practice by forging fake credentials. While working, he started performing illegal abortions and supplying narcotics to patients for personal use, and his first victim was Louise Delaveau. Marcel had an affair with her, and then she disappeared during their relationship, and witnesses saw Marcel loading some big trunk into his car, which was presumably her body. The doctor was finally exposed when his neighbors continuously complained to the police about this foul stench coming from his house and an excessive amount of smoke just coming out of his chimney. The police initially thought it was a fire, so they called firemen to his house, and they found a massive fire in a coal stove in his basement. But within the fire, scattered all over his basement, were human remains of over 60 patients. He was later beheaded, and rightfully so. At number 8, we have lobotomies. I've been researching this medical procedure ever since the first time I saw it in a movie in my early teens. It's just so fascinatingly screwed up that I'm like, how could they even do that? So this procedure was done as a form of psychosurgery, which is a surgery that tries to treat a mental illness or at least reduce the symptoms of one. The procedure started being done in the 30s, and it started off as a hole being cut into the skull and injecting ethanol into the brain to sever the fibers that connect the frontal lobe of the brain to the other parts. As if that wasn't bad enough, it evolved into the ice pick method, which is what I've seen a lot of and you probably have in movies as well. It involves a metal pick being put through the eye socket of the patient and then being moved side to side inside to separate the frontal lobe from the thalamus. Like, surely that would hurt. If someone is putting an ice pick through your eye socket, that has to hurt. It was extremely inhumane and was mostly performed on women to make them less spirited. It would literally change your personality and make you just not there. You just weren't present. It has the potential of damaging your intellect or severe brain damage. These people would just become incompetent afterwards and not be able to function normally in society. If you've seen the movie Sucker Punch, or if you've seen BoJack Horseman, they perform lobotomies in those two, and I'm just looking at them and I'm just like Filling at number 7 slot is Dr. Michael Swango. Born in 1954, this American serial killer is quite the monster. Former US Marine recruit and medical doctor, Michael got a surgical internship at Ohio State University Medical Center in 1983. But the nurses started noticing that seemingly healthy patients were dying at an alarming rate for no reason at all, and each time Michael had been the floor intern that day. One nurse even caught him injecting some medicine into a patient who became quite sick later the same day. day. Her accusations were met with allegations of paranoia and nothing really happened from it. His internship ended and he started working as an emergency medical technician at the Adams County Ambulance Corps. His co-workers realized every time Michael was the one preparing food or coffee and bringing it to them, they would all become violently ill for no reason. An investigation was launched and he was arrested for poisoning patients and colleagues and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. But the bullshit doesn't even end there. I wish it did, but it really doesn't. When he was released, he changed his name to Daniel Adams and was back in the medical scene again, killing colleagues and patients. He then fled to Zimbabwe when suspicion arose again, where he was again working as a doctor, killing more people. He was eventually caught in 2000, thank God, and was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms. And he full on deserves it, like. Now at number 6 is Dr. John Hall. Now back in 2004, this dentist was accused by the State Dental Board of committing sexual assault and battery. How did he do that, you ask? He used to fill syringes with some unknown liquid and put it in his female patients' mouths while they were numb, claiming it was a cleansing solution. His assistants found it increasingly odd how he always asked them to leave the room to get tools that he never used, but then would overhear him telling the patient to swallow something once they were alone. Upon more investigation, the assistants found out that the syringes were filled with Hall's sperm, and since the patients couldn't taste anything, they had no idea. Who the hell does that? Like, who gains anything from that? That is disgusting. The assistants turned over the evidence to the police, and another patient came out claiming he had climbed on top of her and started grinding on her, which by the way is not part of a dentist's job description. When exposed, he claimed he was taking Propecia and collecting his semen to see the effects, but obviously that was bullshit. Coming in at number 5 is Karl Klauberg. Now Karl was a German gynecologist that conducted medical experiments on the prisoners at Auschwitz concentration camp. In 1942 he approached one of his seniors and asked him if he could perform mass sterilizations on women at the camp for his experiments, and the senior agreed. He would do messed up things like injecting acid into the women's uteruses with no anesthesia, which resulted in so many women dying or suffering from permanent damage. The point of the experiment was to figure out how long it would take to sterilize 1,000 Jewish women, and the answer was with 10 assistants you could do it in a day. 700 women survived the ordeal, but many lost their lives. Karl moved to another camp and Soviet troops captured him there and brought him to the Soviet Union, where he was sentenced to 25 years in jail. At number 4 is Harold Shipman, the only British doctor in history to ever be found guilty of murdering his patients. In 1974, Harold became a general practitioner at a practice in West Yorkshire. Things were going fine, but a year later he was found forging prescriptions for patients so they could take pethidine, this opiate type of morphine, for personal, not medical use. Later on, people started getting concerned due to the high death rate of his patients and the number of cremation forms that he had needed countersigned. He killed most of them by injecting diamorphine into their bloodstream and then forging their death certificates saying they died of poor health or natural causes. He ended up killing 218 people altogether and was convicted in 2000, but hung himself in a cell 4 years later. Filling our number 3 slot is Dr. Hazard. Born in 1867, Dr. Linda Burfield demanded her patients call her Dr. Hazard, so I don't even know how that didn't raise any concerns with anyone, but sure. She was infamous for the unconventionally dangerous methods she used to try and cure diseases, which garnered her the nickname Starvation Doctor. She was adamant that fasting cured all diseases from the common cold to cancer. Burfield made her patients go on a draconian diet which lacked all basic nutritional elements, meaning you had 2 bowls of tomato broth and 2 oranges a day for up to a month. By 1912, she was sentenced to 2 years in prison for the death of Claire Williamson, who weighed less than 50 pounds when she died. After her release, she opened up the School of Health, where she continued to starve her patients. Mind you, she wasn't doing this maliciously, she genuinely thought it would help. She killed 15 people through her methods and actually died herself in 1938 while fasting to get better. And plot twist, she wasn't even a doctor, she never even went to medical school, so I don't even know how she got hired anywhere. Now at number 2 is Dr. Farid Fatah. Now most doctors would love having a high survival rate amongst their patients, but Dr. Fatah was not one of those people. As an oncologist, he made his money by providing chemotherapy to cancer patients and to those that literally did not have cancer. Now hear me out. As a greedy pig he was, he realized his patients weren't profitable after they went into remission, aka became cancer free, so he just didn't tell them that they were. He just continued that treatment, which isn't just, oh, take a few extra Advils a week. It was chemo. That's not a joke. It was pain, it was nerve damage, it was nausea, many other side effects, just so he could buy himself a castle in Lebanon. Really? Really, do you really need a castle that bad? I don't think so. Not only did he continue chemo for those who no longer had cancer, he would just diagnose healthy patients with cancer who did not have it at all just so they could do chemotherapy. The man was loaded by the time the police caught on and pled guilty to being the biggest scum of the earth. No surprise. His court date keeps getting postponed because of the hundreds of people still coming forward against him. That's just disgusting. Now, I don't believe in capital punishment, but I mean, some people are worthy. And I'm not saying he is, but I'm not saying he's not. And finally, at number 1 is Josef Rudolf Mengele, aka the Angel of Death. Josef was an officer and physician in Auschwitz concentration camp and was one of the people who would not only choose who was going to the gas chambers, but he would be the one administering the cyanide pesticide. In the children's block, he literally drew a 150 centimeter line towards the ceiling, and any kid that was shorter than the line was sent to the gas chambers. The rest of them were used in his experiments, and he was especially interested in identical twins. He didn't care about the health, safety, or emotional and physical suffering of any of his victims. He was a sociopath. He would amputate their limbs, infect one twin with something like typhus, and transfer the blood of the other to the infected one. Most of the specimens died while being experimented on, but if they didn't, they would just be killed and dissected after they were no longer of use. And he was so nice to these kids, he would make them call him Uncle Joseph and feed them candy and then later gas them. Like, how do you have that little empathy? One night, he killed 14 pairs of twins because he kept injecting their hearts with chloroform, and if one twin died, he'd just kill the other one on purpose just to compare. Mengele would inject chemicals into their eyes. He even sewed 2 Romani twins together back to back in a feeble attempt to create man-made conjoined twins, but both died in a few days. He somehow survived the war and escaped to South America and was never caught despite killing a very high number of people. How do you not get caught for doing that? That is such a gross human rights violation, I can't even. Getting triggered, don't talk to me right now. And that's it for today's video, guys. I just hate people sometimes. Like, this list just really makes me hate them, you know what I mean? Like, what kind of screwed up thought process must you have to even want to do any of these things? Let me know which one horrified you the most, and as always, I'm your host, Ayman Hassan, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye! Oh wait, why is my voice breaking? The price of the Nintendo Switch and my balls dropping, Now during World War II, and I can't see the sentence anymore. Now this man alone was responsible for some of the most Okay. Guess I just won't say that sentence, right? Guess I won't. F him. To be honest. While working, he started performing illegal abortions and implying that. And so, why? Like, I feel like I'm stumbling over my. Speak English today. It's fine. In 1970, I'm eating my hair. When exposed, he claimed he was taking